Okay. Who's that? Okay. I'll call a meeting to order. Welcome everybody to Coquitlam City Council's council chamber. I'm forced to ask myself, what's going on in the front row over here? Mr. Clerk.
That might be our first delegation, Mr. Chair. Our first delegation of the evening.
I'm sorry? Okay, so why don't we do the delegation first? Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. Just before introducing our first formal item on the agenda, I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to the fact that we have two on-table items, reports 12 and 15, which are in blue at the back of the room. Our first presentation this evening is Real Acts of Caring Week, and it's Maple Creek Middle School who are here to speak about Real Acts of Caring, and we'll just get them set up.
Okay, we admit that this is our favorite delegation of the whole year. Welcome back.
Okay. Mayor Richard Stewart and council members, thank you for letting us present tonight.
Hi, I'm Braden and I'm in grade 6.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie and I'm in grade 6.
Hi, I'm Runnel and I'm in grade 6.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah and I'm in grade 8.
Hi, I'm Sarah and I'm in grade 6.
Hi, I'm Nathan and I'm in grade 6.
Hi, I'm Callie in grade 6 and we all go to Maple Creek Middle School.
This year, Real Acts of Caring, or RAC Week, is during the week of February 8 to 14, 2015. We are trying to get as many people as possible to celebrate it with us by participating in kind and caring acts during that week.
Real Acts of Caring is about doing something kind and caring for another and not expecting anything back in return. A real act of caring is about making a positive difference for another and making them feel special inside.
A real act of caring is about helping somebody if they need it. A real act of caring is about making our world a better place.
This is the 9th year that students have been involved in spreading caring and kindness in the Tri-Cities and British Columbia in February. It started off small but has really grown thanks to your support over the years in spreading our message. We are trying our best to be positive leaders in our community, and it is a huge deal to us to know that our local governments and our communities support what we are doing.
Some examples of things which we are doing include going to local coffee shops and paying for drinks for unsuspecting customers, cutting 8 inches or more of our hair off and donating it to wig-making companies, to those kids who have lost their hair due to cancer treatments, taking treats to fire and police stations, visiting senior homes and having lunch with them and playing music with them.
You can do things too. Here are some ideas. Simply smiling and saying hello, saying a kind and caring comment to another person, helping someone carry something, letting someone go ahead of you in a lineup, and here are some things that we have done.
Me and my mother were in this store and there was this little kid crying, so I decided to buy him a candy and I gave it to his mother to give to him.
Well, in April, I'll be cutting 8 inches of my hair off to kids who have cancer, and then the wig making company will be making wigs for these kids that have lost their hair due to cancer treatments.
My family and I recently went down to Vancouver and handed out McDonald's coupons and clothes.
I donated an almost brand new bike to the Sathira house to a little boy who I don't know who has nothing.
My mom and I saw a blind man on the street and he didn't know where to go. We guided him across the street.
When my friend and I went to Starbucks, we saw this little boy, and he didn't have enough change to buy what he wanted. So my friend and I were searching through our pockets to find as much change as we could. And then when his mom saw that, when we ordered our drink, she paid for our drinks.
Last summer, my family and I went on a trip to Jamaica to build a house for a homeless family and teach people my age to read and write. 3 years before we left, I asked for donations instead of gifts for my birthday parties, and I was able to raise $837 to help pay for building materials and school supplies.
Wow.
Our goal is to make others feel good inside by committing kind acts. But what we have discovered over the years is that we probably feel even better inside than they do by committing these acts.
We understand that Coquitlam does not recognize proclamations. However, we are asking you to officially recognize this week. Thanks for listening to our message, and get involved in RAC today.
And now we have a rack for you.
All right. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Excellent. I love one. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay. One's fine. That's thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I better not. Thank you very much. You guys need the present. Wow. So RAC, which must stand for Readily Available Cookie. Thank you so much for your participation every year as a school, and thank you all these students for your enthusiasm. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. I didn't know you guys would be coming back this year, but I remember the previous visits. And last year, the group of students who were here gave us a beautiful presentation, and they also gave us a wooden coin that I have kept in my desk here. And every now and again I open up and it brings a smile to my face because it's a Play It Forward Random Acts of Caring coin. And you can ask my council colleagues that I need to be reminded to be kind and caring sometimes. So this definitely helps.
Top drawer?
It's the top drawer. There's a pen in there, a paper clip, an elastic band, a little note to myself about something else, and this. So thank you very much. You've made my day again.
Outstanding. I'm Thank you. Thank you very much. Outstanding.
Thank you very much for letting us present. I really appreciate you inviting the kids or allowing them to come back each year. This means a great deal to them, and every year I think they get stronger and the message of real acts of caring spreads further. And it started off at one little school, and now it's actually gone all over the entire district and into our community. And next year will be 10 years, so this is 9 years now. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for all your support with this.
Thank you, Ms. Chang. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, 9 years. Every year we've been on council. Yeah. Cool stuff.
After 9 years, they've learned they don't want to stay for any more of the meetings.
No. Yes. They learned in their first year that the meetings aren't as interesting as they look. Thank you very much for coming. It sets a high bar, though, for our next delegation as far as the cuteness factor goes, so we'll see if the next delegation measures up in cuteness. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our second item and second presentation is the I Am Someone Ending Bullying Society, and then Mr. Doug Rogers is here to present on their behalf.
Good evening, Mayor Stewart and councillors. Thank you very much for allowing I Am Someone to do a presentation and make you aware of what it is that we do. I was planning to have all of you pull out your smartphones and do a little bit of technology, but somebody mentioned to me that they probably have a rule here that you turn your smartphones off during council meetings.
Not really.
All right, well, if you want to pull out your smartphones, but we'll show a video that you can get just by Googling as we go through this. And you're going to help me out here? Thank you. There's a video coming up on the screen, and I'll let you self-explanatory.
Are you bullied? Alone? Afraid? For confidential help, text to talk. I am someone.
So that's a short video, and that, if you may not be aware of, that video made it into Silver City Cineplex in the month of December. It was one of the pre-shows before the actual movie that came on that we had that video. I Am Someone is a relatively new nonprofit society, and it was started from the basis of anti-bullying, and it continues with anti-bullying. But we are very lucky and leading edge, as we've been told, is that we've come across a technology which one may think is simple, but it is quite involved in the infrastructure of the technology, and it's a short code. And it's where an individual is in some sort of a situation or witnessing a situation and has some concerns about it. They text this number, 28255, and it goes to BC 211. Now, BC 211 is another society, but they are been around for 50 years, and they are a professional body. They're a referral service, and also will do some counseling right with the text as it is itself. What we have found through our research, and probably not a surprise to anybody here, is that youth probably text 80% of the time, and they're on the phone maybe 10 or 15, 20% of the time. So texting is the mode that youth do use. We've started an awareness program. We started this texting platform in October. In October, we were the beneficiary of proceeds from an online auction at Coquitlam Centre, which created some awareness for the organization. I'd like to just explain a few statistics that we have. As I mentioned, that we have been with BC 211 since October. and they've provided us with monthly reports, and I believe the package that you've got the months of October and November. For the 3 months, total conversations we had was 84, and we had reasons reported. Of that 84, we had 25 reasons reported, and referral provided with that was 19. Those are quite significant numbers, percentage-wise, on the reasons reported in the referral period. The number 84 for 3 months, we're happy with that because we're just starting with continuing with our awareness of the program. We think it's very valuable to society, and with that, we have been challenged, and we challenge ourselves, what is success? And one of the points that we've come up with is saving one life through this texting platform. With the reasons reported, we've got abuse, we've got bullying, conflict with others, education and training, grief loss, health, housing and homelessness, mental health, and substance abuse. The largest one in that group was mental health, we have found out. So we have found that our texting platform is getting much bigger in the services that it provides to the community. We were looking at it as an anti-bullying service, but now we're getting into things such as I mentioned, mental health is a very high one. On the referral side, the numbers sort of reflect the same type of allocation between the different groups. I've got a PowerPoint here. I guess I'm supposed to be using it. And you can see on the slide there the bullying, mental health, grief loss, and conflict with interest. I'd like to just mention a few of the quotations we've got. In your package you've got, there's an October-November report. The October had no testimonials. The November had some testimonials. With that, I'd like to read you some from the December report. 1, I am being bullied. 2, these are not in what the package you've got. By December, I've got with me. I'm willing to sell it to you for a fee, for a donation. 2, is it okay if my problem isn't bullying, but rather depression? 3, my friend is being bullied and he gets his lunch thrown into the garbage every day. 4, yeah, I just feel that everything is my fault and I have just screwed up everything. 5, recently I found out that my closest friend since kindergarten has been cutting herself and purposely taking overdose on pills. These are just a few of the testimonials that we get. We don't get too many testimonials from BC 211 due to privacy and confidentiality with it. So we are a new organization. We're very excited. Our birthplace is the Tri-Cities area. So that's why we're here in front of you tonight, just to explain who we are. We have a walk coming up on the 22nd of February, and we'd very much appreciate if you could come out to that. That would be very much appreciated. It's a good fundraiser for us. We're looking at, I am someone we're looking at over the next couple of months. We're still going through our evaluation of the performance of the texting platform, but we are looking at taking this not only province-wide, but we're looking at taking this Canada-wide with it. So I thank you all very much for listening to what I had to say. I very much appreciate it. And if I could take the liberty, I'm going to take you away from I Am Someone. I'm just going to mention something else to extend to you as my guest to attend the Children's Charity Telethon that's happening at the Hard Rock Casino on February 14th and 15th. As facilities chair, you're more than welcome to come. I will give you a tour of the facility of the theater as it's operating for telethon purposes. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much for coming out. So much of our children's, this generation's challenges, be they mental health, be they particularly mental health, originate in bullying and other abusive, emotionally abusive realities. And so thank you for coming out. Thank you for standing up for this on behalf of all of Council. Mr. Kirk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our next item, item 3, concerns minutes of the public hearing held on Monday, January 26th. The recommendation is to approve those minutes.
Moved
by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Hodge. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is minutes of the regular council meeting held on Monday, January 26th. Recommendations to approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is minutes of the Finance Standing Committee meeting of Monday, January 19th. Recommendation is to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Zarrillo, second by Councillor Asmussen. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is minutes of the Finance Standing Committee meeting of Tuesday, January 20th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Zarrillo, second by Councillor Towner. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 7 is minutes of the Tri-Cities Homelessness and Housing Task Group meeting of Friday, January 9th. The recommendation is to receive those minutes.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Towner, second by Councillor Asmussen. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 8 is our first report of staff. It concerns the Citywide Official Community Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment applications for 1120 Falcon Drive and 2565 Runnel Drive. Staff recommendations that Council authorize the consideration of OCP amendment and zoning amendment applications prior to the complete of these zoning. The Council authorized the consideration of these OCP amendment and zoning applications prior to the completion of the City Centre Area Plan update.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 9 is zoning amendment bylaw number 4531 for a proposed subdivision at 3500 Highland Drive. Staff recommendation is that Council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4531 and that bylaw number 4531 be referred to public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Asmussen. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 10 is Citywide Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4522 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4527. These are to amend the industrial zones in the CS1 Service Commercial Zone. The four-part staff recommendation is that Council give first reading to City of Coquitlam Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4522. First reading to City of Coquitlam Zoning Amendment Bylaw 4527. That in accordance with the Local Government Act, consider Bylaw 4522 in conjunction with the City of Coquitlam 2014 5-year financial plan, Bylaw number 4451, and the Regional Solid Waste Management Plan. And finally, that Bylaws number 4522 and 4527 be referred to public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Marsden. Councillor Asmussen.
Well, thank you very much, and to staff. A long time in coming. I think it was about 8 years ago through the Economic Development Committee at the time that I think it was Councillor Hodge now was on that committee also, and we moved through that committee the consolidation from 9 to 3 or 4 back then. It's been a bit of a process, but I'm very, very glad to see this here, and I can see the supporting documents from the other outside agencies all very supportive of this document going forward. I do have a concern within one part of the report, though, and that is coming under mini storage in M1, M2. And my concern is that in Coquitlam, we do not have a lot of industrial land, or the term I prefer, job-generating lands, and mini storages don't produce a lot of jobs. I would prefer it if mini storages were to lands that may be unencumbered, encumbered in some way, that it couldn't be used for other purposes, and you could put mini storage in there. Or on the other part of it, that mini storages would have to be between 4- and 6-story buildings, not a flat one level taking up tremendous amount of valuable space for commercial, industrial, job generating. So those are some of the comments I'd like to take back. I'm not going to hold this up, but I do think there's a refinement in there that we need to look at on that issue. Mr. McIntyre?
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Councillor Asmussen. I understand that, and I know there was a brief discussion about that prior, and we get it. We understand that concern. Let us take it away in the public hearing brief. We'll come back and maybe speak to those some of those points, those thoughts you've raised, if you're comfortable with that. We get it in that it's not a labor-intensive type of use, but on the other hand, they are happening out there. You need to find some place in the community for them. I know the project leader, Erica Tiffany, our development planning supervisor, was really key in driving this project forward. She may also have some comments at this time if she wishes. If not, we'll report back in the public hearing brief if we could.
And that's fine, Mr. McIntyre. I just think the issue needs to be raised in the context of our land availability and what we have, and trying to maximize the job-generating uses out of our lands. And you know, you look at industrial lands and the short supply of industrial lands highlighted by Metro Vancouver's report, Port Metro Vancouver on this. I think this is a tremendous document, and I give kudos to staff for all the work, to Erica Tiffany for doing the lead project. I think this is a great report. Just one small piece that I'd come back to the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Zerillo.
Oh, thank you very much. I just had two quick questions of clarification. The first one was about gyms, paintball, rock climbing, etc. Is that still accommodated under these zones? I just needed some clarification on that.
Through your worship, that would be considered a commercial recreation use, which would be permitted use in our B1 zone.
Okay. So I didn't see it in M1, M2, so B1 is where it would fall?
That is correct.
Okay, okay. And then my other question was related to the accessory retail sales. So the only barrier we have right now is alcoholic. I'm wondering about, we know we have chocolate there, we could have a bakery there, we could have an industrial bakery. Is it just alcohol at this point that's going to be restricted?
Through your worship, that is correct. It's just the restriction, that's a current restriction that exists now within all of our industrial zones with regard to accessory retail sales. It does not prohibit alcoholic sales.
Okay. So, sorry, I do have one more. So what about if a product is not, thinking about food, if a product is not processed there but it's packaged there, so if there was just packaging being done and it was coming in and being packaged there, could it still be sold accessory retail?
Good question. Typically, the definition provides for is the manufacturing of that product on the site. That would qualify for the accessory retail sales. Mm-hmm. We'd have to think about that a little bit in terms of whether or not that truly would be manufacturing that particular product. If all they were packaging, you could probably take a stretch and say that could be manufacturing, but it would be probably a bit of a stretch as we define it in our bylaw.
Okay. I'm just trying to think about future stuff because we know a lot of stuff comes in now. All it needs is packaging with English and French, and it could be a problem. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Yep, thank you very much. I was really pleased to see the positive feedback from the various groups that you consulted with. Extremely positive, so that sends a very strong message. You guys have done a good job there. There's some conversion under this simplification system, some conversion of current industrially zoned lands to service commercial. Is there any figures or estimations done on how much industrial zone land for acreage or square feet that we have now, and how much under the new system we will have industrially zoned land, or is the amount that's being converted from industrial to service commercial balanced off by something else? We're going to end up with roughly the same. Is there any information that we could get there from our staff, Mr. Mayor?
Through your worship, don't have those figures at my fingertips, but it's certainly something we could provide to you as part of the public hearing brief. Just for information, those lands that we're going to a CS1 zone are primarily zoned M6, retail industrial right now. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our M6 zone, it's essentially a quasi commercial retail zone. I see Councillor Reid smiling. It's been one of those odd zones that we've been calling industrial, but really, truly, at the end of the day, has been functioning more like a service commercial zone more than anything else. So as a result, a lot of the uses that we currently have on these sites that have the M6 zoning are truly service commercial type uses.
They're not really industrial anyway, so if we're losing that as industrial, it's not real industrial land we're losing anyway. Okay, I understand.
That's correct.
And the final point was touched on by Councillor Zerillo. It's about the issue of craft breweries, really. I raised the issue here several months ago when I was told that there was some sort of regulatory vacuum that we had that did not allow craft breweries of the sort that have sprung up in Port Moody, famously, in the last year or two. We did not allow those in Coquitlam, and I was told that, okay, we're going to look into that. That is something that's an issue, and we'll close that loophole or fill that vacuum or something. But according to page 5 of this report, the staff has looked at this and decided not to deal with this under this program here, but instead we're going to wait until all the dust settles on the provincial liquor regulation changes, and then at some stage consider this issue. I don't want the world to pass us by on this. There's a tremendous interest in craft breweries right now, and good for the economy, good for the consumer, producing marvelous product. New Westminster and Port Moody, I know for sure, and New Westminster, the ones that I've visited. And I'm a little frustrated that we're not moving forward on this, and I wonder, Mr. Mayor, if we could have staff explain their reasoning for not making this happen right now.
I believe it's Jim McIntyre's fault. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry, I meant he's got the reason. He knows the reason. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Worship. Well, in fact, I was just going to suggest maybe a field trip for council and staff, and we'll go check this out and have a fuller discussion. But no, more seriously, we heard the comment through the chair to Councillor O'Neill. Plus, there's another councillor as well who had raised this. We are aware of what's happening out there. We looked at it. We would like to address this through the ongoing liquor licensing policy, and actually that review is happening right now, because there are almost on a monthly basis new announcements coming out of the province. There's another date coming up here, April 1st, I think, where some things are supposed to change as well. So we have, along with that, we have had discussions with people in the liquor primary, with the beer and wine stores. There seems to be a lot of angst and uncertainty in that industry. So we'd like to try to address it as a whole. We are going to deal with that. It's not something that's going to sit there on the shelf for too long. As noted in the report, you can have the brewery as a processing operation in any of the industrial zones. It's just that ancillary sampling and tasting and sales thereof. We just really need to understand that in relation to the overall liquor licensing policy changes, and we are on that, and we will get back to council. You have my commitment.
Mayor, may I suggest that you hop to it, because we wouldn't want to see any controversy brew.
Oh.
Thank you.
I knew that.
Anyway, so
we are certainly losing a lot of your fizz, so go right ahead.
I'll try to cap this as soon as possible here.
Please.
No, this is a serious subject, and yes, I understand that you can still have a brewery in Coquitlam. It's just the off sales, and that's what makes it so attractive, to be able to go in and experience, be there in the brewery and have tastings at the tasting room, and then buy what are the large ones called? Growler of beer or something like, bring it home. That's a very attractive thing, and it's so. Do you have any estimate on when the dust will settle on the provincial rules, and then when we can deal with this issue, expedite it one way or the other, make a decision?
We do have a group looking at that right now, and as I said, there are pending further changes in provincial policies. I can just assure Council it would be a priority. We would get back to this within the next couple of months, back to Council.
That's good for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I polled Council about the idea of some kind of investigative research field trip, and in the words of my cousin Patrick Stewart, make it so. Councillor Reid.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, your goodness. No, just call me your
I
worship.
want to talk about the cottage breweries as well. So in the meantime, when people come in to inquire if we do have zones, hopefully our staff at the front counter are well aware of the progress that you're trying to make on this, and that it's not that we're prohibiting them at this time.
Your Worship, that's an excellent suggestion. We'll make sure they are aware of that, and if there are groups with or parties that are interested in pursuing that, we'd like to speak to them as well. A little bit of a sense from the business side what they're looking for and what they need. But we will take that back to staff, certainly.
Okay, and one question. Port Moody has 2. Do they not have tasting rooms and off sales? Mr. McIntyre?
I understand that they do.
Well, could you tell me, are they in a different province? If they're provincial liquor laws we're dealing with, how come that happens?
Your Worship, I don't know the exact details on the provincial liquor licensing, but they do for, I believe, for wineries and breweries, that they can have tasting rooms and that, and limited sales in those facilities. I'm not up on the details of that regulation. That's the sort of thing we'd want to look at. But in relation to some of the other concerns we were hearing,
I guess.
Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. It's been 10 years since I was at Port Moody. That industrial zone along Murray Street is a bit of a hodgepodge zone. It allows for a range of activities, and I guess they've managed to locate those businesses in that area. I think it's transition.
I'm sorry, a zoning shouldn't change a provincial liquor law.
It's not a provincial law that stops it.
Well, I'm reading down here. It says,
zoning.
Excuse me, I'm talking to Mr. McIntyre.
He doesn't know the answer.
It says staff recommend, the last paragraph, that the change is being implemented by the province and what it may mean for Coquitlam. So I guess I just don't see why they can have one and we can't. It just doesn't make any sense to me, because the provincial liquor laws are, all over the province. So I don't get this. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I would like to pursue this, but most importantly, I'd like the staff at the front counter to not turn folks away that are looking for this particular piece of property, and so at least make you aware of it if I can.
Richard, can I answer this?
Okay?
Yes.
And my second question is to do with the accessory health care and rehabilitation and treatment service. So what does that entail? What have we got down there when you say health care? We're not talking doctors' offices and that, are we? I'm on page 12.
Through your worship, that particular provision refers to a current commercial recreation use that's on United Boulevard, and what that would entail is, as an accessory use, people who are coming in for rehabilitation services who have been prescribed recreation activity. As part of that recreation activity, as an accessory use, they would be a physiotherapist or a doctor to do an assessment at the end of that recreation activity. So it's kind of a complementary use to the principal use of the commercial recreation on the site.
And what commercial recreation facility is this, please?
I believe it's Club Aviva.
Called what?
Club Aviva.
Oh, Aviva. Oh, okay. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Marsden and then Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Marsden.
Yes, thank you very much. Good report, and I think this is going to be well received as we go to public hearing on it from the business community. A couple of quick questions. I want to echo the comments of my peers with regards to the work around the craft breweries and the opportunities that present themselves there. It is becoming quite the industry, so really encouraged that we move forward with that one. Glad to hear that the research has been done, and having spoken to Mr. McIntyre previously about this topic, I'm very happy that we're going down that path. So thank you. In the B1 zoning, it speaks to grocery stores and restaurants of limited size. I believe in looking through the report, we're talking sub 1,000 square feet in some of the cases. So are we going to be hard and fast as we go and make that clear in the public hearing that these are going to be fairly small establishments? Again, probably looking in the industrial park itself, that they'd be well received. And a follow-up question to that is, would it also accommodate the ability to provide service stations? Something else that we've heard from the business community in the Pacific Reach Park previously.
Mr. Mack.
Your Worship, I'll offer a few initial comments, and then perhaps Erica can fill in the gaps. Yes, this also springs back to earlier in the review process, this thought, this concern that there may be a lack of those types of services, those sort of day-to-day, daily services you need in those industrial areas. And so have been identified to provide for both for the service stations and for the limited retail and restaurant cafes, but again of a limited size. The thinking being it's catering to the people working in that area or for businesses in that area. It's not to be a larger standalone destination dining establishment for after hours. So that's what the cap was set. Now, I believe it's been specified as a condition of use, but I'll have Erica just clarify that or confirm that. As a condition of use, it could be varied. You can't vary use or density, but a condition of use you could be varied. But it'd have to have a pretty rock solid rationale, I think.
Yes, through Your Worship. So the 85 meter squared size reflects generally many of the existing restaurants we have down there in the industrial area. They're currently provided for under the M7 zone. They're typically tenant spaces within a larger industrial complex building, so it's a smaller industrial space where the neighbors are another industrial users. So typically the sizes of those restaurants were around 85 meters squared. That's how staff landed on the number. We used general approximate rules of thumb in terms of what's going on now. If somebody came in and wanted 90 meters squared of floor space, as Jim indicated, they could apply for a variance, and at council's discretion could grant that. With respect to, Bill, you had one other question with respect to the service stations. Yes, in answer to your question, we have added service station zoning as a corresponding zone to the industrial land use designation. So if someone wanted to come in and rezone an industrial designated property, they could do so under these bylaw amendments.
Okay, thank you.
And now, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want the public to be very clear about the roadblock that's in front of cottage or craft breweries in Coquitlam. It is entirely a municipal roadblock right now. Provincial legislation allows the off-sale and tasting of wines next to wineries and beer next to breweries is part of that. Provincial legislation now allows that. The top of page 5 of the introductory report here, it clearly states that our own zoning bylaw currently excludes the sale of alcoholic beverages as an accessory retail use in a number of commercial and industrial zones, and the same exclusion is carried over to the new zones. This is our doing. This is in this bylaw. And the rest of that section explains why why staff is suggesting that this is the right way to go, because there's still some uncertainty over other liquor policy changes that are coming down regarding implementation in retail stores and things like that, I imagine, and they want to get all the dust settled on that before they move ahead on this one. but I think it's pretty clear from the people who've spoken on this issue on council that once the dust does settle, that we want to at least have something, a report on this issue, because it's a municipal, civic, City of Coquitlam roadblock right now, not allowing craft breweries to exist in the way they're existing in New Westminster and Port Moody, where they make the beer on site and sell it on site and taste it on site. That's what many of us want to see happen, and want to see that happen quickly. Thank you.
Okay. And anyone who's watching at home or watching here for that matter, page 5 is the section that Councillor O'Neill was referring to. And it is quite clear that we could opt, instead of this, to make those changes now in this bylaw at first reading and submit the changed bylaw to the public hearing. It seems evident from even the way staff have worded this that staff are asking us not to do that right now, we'll do it later, but that is certainly among the options available to us. This is something we have to fix in our bylaw that does, I think, restrict inordinately, unreasonably, the application of a perfectly normal business practice in every other community that has craft brewery. In fact, we had a craft brewery here once. It was at one point it was attached to a pub here in the city centre. It doesn't exist anymore, but it seems odd that we still have a holdover in our industrial zone that prohibits what so many other communities and anyone in this industry would want to have happen in their brewery. And since our vineyards are plumb full of BC produce and we want to make it into wine or whatever, we should figure out a way to solve this thing. Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thank you, Worship. We've heard loud and clear, and I know there was, as I said, there was discussions even before this package came forward, so we were aware of that. So again, we will look into it. We'll look into this promptly. We'll get back to council. I guess in the meantime, my offer would be, my counteroffer would be, if there's people out there that are looking at that type of business, if they've got a site, if they've got some ideas, we're at the stage where we're welcoming consultation. We need this input so we can help make this a better bylaw. So we will get back to you on that.
Okay. It's on the floor. I'm going to drag it out, sorry. If the public concurs with our deliberations here during the public hearing, what are our options related to this bylaw at third reading?
You'd be thinking of adding a use or expanding on a permitted use in a zone?
Or simply eliminating that one restriction. The restriction is that accessory retail does not include alcoholic beverages. Scratching out that.
After public hearing, you can't increase density. You can't decrease density without the property owner's permission. And I'm not sure you can add an additional use, because if the bylaw's gone forward with a certain range of uses and you have the public hearing, and after that a new use is added, I don't believe that's acceptable under the legislation. But the city clerk might be able to comment on that or not. But again, we would urge, let's look at this piece in the context of the other policy, liquor licensing policy changes.
Well, I wouldn't say this is adding density. The current regulation seems dense enough. Mr. Clerk.
Without having the legislation from me, I would tend to concur with Mr. McIntyre on the change in use, because you can imagine a more substantive or more impactful change in use, and someone from the public could legitimately claim that they would have come out if they'd known that change was in there.
No,
I don't have the legislation in front of me to determine that exactly.
And you can't guide us as to what kind of amendment we could put on the floor today at first reading. We could defer first reading or else do first reading over again, but I'd rather
If you did defer first reading, it would change the public hearing to end of March rather than end of February.
Okay. Councillor Reid, and then Councillor
I had whispered to you about moving the date, but that's not going to work. is there, could we add like a number 5 in here that says that staff is to help? Staff is to look in, that would be a priority for us?
Your Worship, certainly if Council wants to add to the recommendation, part of the motion is to give direction to staff to look at the business opportunity of these breweries and report back and...
Within the public hearing?
Or the public hearing?
Yeah.
We will do that.
Well, I mean, you've already looked at it. You know, it's not a mystery. It's not a new business. Other people are doing it. So if it's just our rules that are, you know, preventing it, surely to gosh, we can change our own rules.
Your Worship, let us take that away. We can, we'll have that discussion about what can be done at a public hearing or following a public hearing. We can give a little more background or a little more information through the public hearing brief, and if there's an interest of Council at that time of including that as permitted use, we'll, if there's a desire for that, we'll lay out that avenue for you.
Okay. Mr. Gilbert, is that, could we add it as number 5 or something?
Well, I think the direction to staff to look into it, I mean, in terms of changing it for the public hearing, I think what we were suggesting is that the bylaw change would have to be proposed and amended tonight, and Mr. McIntyre has set out some reasons why he would like to proceed otherwise. I think we could take it as direction. You could add it as a number 5, saying that staff be directed to investigate this further and treat it as a priority. But
I just want it included in the public hearing so that if we all agree and we can move it forward.
I would suggest that the only way to include it in the public hearing would be to amend the bylaw.
So I'm going to suggest one of the options available to us. If you turn to Schedule C, which is the bylaw itself, turning to page 10. This is at the top of the page, letter F, accessory retail as limited under subsection 3A, and then deleting the next 5 or next 6 words. That's page 10 of Schedule C, the third line. It's in between the middle of drawings.
Okay, Schedule C, and where was it?
Page 10.
Yeah.
Letter F at the top of the page, third line.
Okay, accessory retail, yeah.
Page 10. The top of page 10 of Schedule C.
Would that impair in any way other businesses?
That's the only place where we actually restrict the sale.
Just ask.
Through your worship, if I may add, the other place that we do restrict is in the B1 zone. So page 2 of Schedule C. F.
Page 2. Of course. Got it?
Oh, just getting there. Okay, F.
Okay, so under both clause F, on page 2 and page 10, we could delete 6 words and
solve our problem.
Pass first reading of the amended bylaw.
Yes, as if Council directed staff to do that tonight, to amend the bylaw accordingly, we can do that.
Okay, and I never do this without asking staff to warn us if we're doing something that you'd be uncomfortable with. Hearing none. Councillor O'Neill, feel free still.
I would move that amendment then to add that addition, or was Councillor Reid going to move it?
I thought you already did.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
So I'll take yours.
I would second Councillor Reid.
Take yours as a second?
Yeah. If staff had said that would really cause a lot of problem, my suggestion would have been later this evening when we're looking at our 2015 business plan to add an A priority for the business and development support under industrial zones update to actually specify there as an A priority that this get fixed, that that they get to the bottom of this really quickly. So we could have done it that way.
Done it that way, but
if we can do it, amending the bylaw now and have that go to public hearing. So at that public hearing, if we hear from the public, no, we're not ready for this, we can take that out and not have a problem.
Yeah, put it back in.
Oh, sorry, put the thing back in, right, yes.
No, we can't, not a public hearing.
So after? So
through your worship, no, you can't, because that would be changing the use, as Jay Clerk had indicated.
So it's either all or nothing. Okay, that's fine. Good. So if we're not comfortable with changing the bylaw now, the least we could do is add it as A+ priority on the business plan. But I've just seconded changing the bylaw. So.
Okay, there's a motion to amend the bylaw that would simply strike out that one restriction in two zones. I'm going to just look for any hands on that issue. Councillor Zurillo.
So,
one moment.
This is new information.
One moment, please. Okay.
So this is new information, new consideration that I didn't have the chance to think about. And what pops into my mind immediately is these winemaking places where it's not one owner, but it's different people that come in and make their own wine. Are we opening ourselves up to that they'll be able to sample and sell their own wine through these outlets? So I guess I've got some questions. I'm not sure that I want to have the answer right now, but I'm just really uncomfortable with not having the time to ask questions and thorough investigation.
Okay, this is first reading, so what we'd be doing, if this amendment goes through, is we'd be passing it at first reading and then referring it to a public hearing and getting all kinds of information over the next few weeks.
I totally understand, but I'm just wondering what's the difference between people coming to public hearing and saying we're not okay with number F, than people coming to the public hearing and number F doesn't say this. We're still trapped of not being able to either change the bylaw back, right? What I'm understanding is if we take that out and we come to public hearing and people say no, we want the restriction of alcohol, we can't rechange the bylaw, right?
We can, in the same way that we could if at public hearing the public came out and said this is a stupid bylaw because it restricts you from the sale and sampling of alcoholic beverages in these two zones. We could reject the bylaw and have another public hearing on an amended bylaw.
Okay.
In the same way that we will be able to at the public hearing or at the third reading point. It's at this point, Council is possibly proposing to move forward with a bylaw that they're more comfortable with than the current one, with a slight revision, or they could move forward with the current one and with the possibility of having to change it later.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not that interested in cowboy governing, so I think I'd rather leave it as it is and not be changing things on the fly. That's just my thought, because I don't understand how it's going to play out for not just breweries, new breweries coming, but what about the other, what about sake, what about winemaking, what about all these kind of things?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't characterize this as cowboy. You move amendments all the time. Mr. McIntyre.
Your Worship, we certainly appreciate the questions and the concerns here and the desire to accommodate a new and growing business industry. I would just caution sometimes in haste there can be difficulties, and if you make those changes to the three zones just off the bat without having analyzed it, and we will give that the highest priority, we'll come back to Council with some options and some recommendations. That would be my strongest urging to you.
I asked you just a couple of minutes ago if you had any strong urgings for us. Okay.
Back off that.
Okay.
Back off.
Councillor Marsden on the amendment. Councillor Wilson. Councillor Marsden.
Just to clarify, I would typically think the amendment makes some sense to me, but we still have within other bylaws the ability to restrict the sale of alcohol, correct? Even though it's zoned that way, there's still some liquor licensing bylaws on our books with regards to location of establishments that would supersede this, would they not?
Through the chair, no. Right now, it's our zoning bylaw that has various separating distance criteria and requirements for liquor establishments and those types of stores. So it is the zoning bylaw that would be addressing this.
Okay, so the bylaws that we have currently with regards to distance from schools, parks, et cetera, this replaces those as well, or those will still be in place?
No, those would still be in effect because those are in other zones. They're in commercial
Those are other zones?
Yes.
Oh, okay. They don't relate to these specific ones. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. Do we have many microbreweries right now asking us if they can open up shop?
I've heard about interest. I've offered to have that contact that person so we understand more about what their ideas and businesses are. We haven't received that information. They may have come, or they may have had an agent come to our front counter and ask about that, but no one has approached us saying, here's a proposal for a business in this location.
Right. So if I came tomorrow to talk to you about wanting to open up a microbrewery and this was the way it is right now, how long do you think I'd have to wait before I could get approval to open a microbrewery?
What we need to do is look into it and then come back with it, ultimately with a text amendment to the zoning bylaw to allow that in whatever zone was recommended to be appropriate for it. So we're a month or two out in that process.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Asmussen.
I guess after the comment of Mr. McIntyre, I guess we're changing something on the fly here tonight, and I really think that if we take the report the way it's written, staff are working this issue, they're going to come back and they can propose an amendment at a later date to allow it. But staff has said this in the report, we want to get a handle on the new regulations so when we do allow this, that we have the fullness of a bylaw that meets our needs and the regulations that are coming out by the province. And as Councillor Wilson asked the question, we don't have anybody, an urgent need, somebody that's pounding at the door that we have to have this done tomorrow. So to me, I'm not going to support the amendment going through. I think we'll leave the bylaw, let it go out there, let get the consultation. If we hear the public hearing, we can pass the bylaw and then we can work on the amendment and have that brought back at a later date to amend our industrial zones. I don't want to hold this up. As I said, I've been here for a long time. Mr. McIntyre knows we've talked about this for years. I don't want this held up. But I don't think right now, with the information we have and what we need to do, I think the way staff has proposed it and written it is the way we should stick with it and continue that way. So I won't support the amendment, but I will support this, the main motion to pass the industrial zone and come back. Thank you.
And similarly, I'm hesitant now. I specifically asked staff if they had hesitation, and if they were comfortable with it, I would have been comfortable myself going forward.
I'll withdraw it.
We can't, so we're just going to have to call a vote on the motion belongs to the floor. There is no process for withdrawing a motion.
Can't.
We don't have a process for it. That's all. It's okay. It'll be over in a minute. Oops. Councillor Reid's done. Okay. All in favor of the amendment. All opposed to the amendment, and council is opposed. The amendment fails, apparently.
Unanimously opposed.
So we're back to the unamended.
To speak more clearly and forcefully earlier.
All right. Yes.
Okay.
And I do actually want to hear when as I say, I've never before allowed an amendment or encouraged an amendment if the staff are at all uncomfortable, and I'm glad you spoke up. Councillor O'Neill, we can as soon as the speakers list is done. Councillor O'Neill, you're up. On the unamended motion. Nope, can't think of what you were going to say. Councillor Zerillo was next.
And we were chatting away and have nothing to say.
There you go.
Spoke already.
So the amendment did have a function. It shortened the speaker's order.
There you go.
The motion has the motion. All in favor? Opposed? We have first reading and a public hearing.
The next item, item 11, is a proposed highway dedication cancellation application adjacent to 612 and 614 Vanessa Court. This is bylaw number 4543. Recommendation from staff is that council give first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam Highway Dedication Cancellation Bylaw number 4543 pertaining to 612 and 614 Vanessa Court, that this bylaw be advertised in accordance with the requirements of the community charter. That council direct the intention of sale of the subject lands created by the council highway dedication to be advertised in accordance with the requirements of the community charter. that pending approval of this bylaw, Council authorized the sale of the subject lands created by the cancelled highway dedication to Polygon Homes at the purchase price of $69,937.43, plus applicable taxes and closing costs. 5, the Council authorized staff to negotiate the contract of purchase and sale with the purchasers in a form and with content acceptable to the City Solicitor. And finally, the Council authorized the Mayor and City Clerk to sign the contract of purchase and sale and other relevant documents pertaining to the sale of these subject lands.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Zerillo is opposed. The motion carries.
The next item, item 12, pertains to one of the blue reports that was circulated to staff and those present earlier and council earlier. Concerns the Coquitlam YMCA agreement in principle. Staff recommendations that council announce the completion of agreement in principle with the YMCA of Greater Vancouver for the development of a new Coquitlam YMCA facility in Burquitlam.
Second.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. It's an unusual process, but does anyone want to speak?
No.
No?
Move on.
Okay.
Well, we have to say something because this is a momentous
occasion. There's a member of our audience that I'm going to rule out of order in a minute, but first he's going to have something to say. Name and address for the record.
Stephen Butt, CEO of the YMCA of Greater Vancouver from 3160 Sunnyhurst and North Vancouver.
Thank you.
What a great day and what a great opportunity to be part of a decision, I think, that when we're all no longer of this earth, this place will exist for kids and families. I was thinking as I was watching the first presentation tonight, I said to myself, you know, I work for an organization that has a purpose statement that talks about helping a generation of kids and families achieve their full potential. Now, folks like me can stand up and talk about that for a long time, but when you get to see what it means to watch kids achieve their full potential in person, I don't have to do a lot of talking. And I think when we think about all the things that go on in a place of trying to make a community that's caring, of bringing families and schools and churches and neighbors and friends and communities together to try to raise a generation of kids to achieve their full potential, we're very proud here in Coquitlam to be part of that from this point going forward. We're doing a lot of work, and we've enjoyed a very, very thoughtful and proactive relationship with this council and that staff and the good folks that you have working in parks, recreation, and culture. We thank them for their leadership. And I'm reminded of a very famous basketball coach who, after winning 18 straight national championships down the state, summed his success up by a very simple statement. And it's amazing what can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I will give credit to the YMCA and to council and to a dedicated group of staff who have been working on this from both organizations, from our city and from the Y, for many, many months. And the agreement we have today brings into fruition, I think, the aspirations that we have for a tremendous facility in Burquitlam. I spent my youth at the YMCA in New Westminster, and it made me part of what I am today. Now, don't take that as a negative. Thank you.
Our next item, item 13, concerns the 2015 business plan priorities. The staff recommendations that council approve the 2015 business plan priorities as identified in attachment A to the report before you.
Move by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, really pleased to see this laid out in this fashion, especially easy for the public to understand and easy for council to understand and refer to as we go through the year as well. Very nice. I do appreciate it. There's one thing here I didn't understand, or I don't remember seeing before. It was expand land under number 2, expand local jobs, local prosperity, transportation initiatives, B, the David Avenue Review. I don't remember what that one was about. Have we talked about that before? And if we have, I'm sorry, I must have missed it.
Actually, that was your idea, Councillor.
Yeah, it might have been.
Mr. Diosegi.
Through your worship, the David Avenue Review is essentially a code for reviewing the phasing of the full development of David Avenue.
Okay.
The most recent phase is going to happen possibly this summer, where we will complete the south side of David Avenue from Coast Meridian going to the east.
Okay, good. And this is probably for you as well, if I can ask through the mayor, under number 4, city infrastructure. An A priority is city center sanitary system capacity upgrade. I wasn't aware of that.
I think you are. You don't realize that.
Maybe just not in that, written up in that form. So
yeah,
is there something, is there something that John Manager can tell us about that?
Yes, it's a... No, I'm not even going to make a joke. Mr. Diosegi.
Thank you, Your Worship. The city center sanitary sewer upgrade is a component of the capacity improvements for the sanitary sewer in the city center. You may recall that last year we completed the construction of the city center sanitary pump station, and the current project, which was just awarded last week to a local contractor, to CV, is a gravity sewer connection going north from the city center pump station along Lougheed Highway, then turning west on Barnett, and then north on Johnson. This is a $1.6 million project, and it's a vital project because of the growth in the city center.
That makes sense, then. Thank you. Back, and I don't think the fire chief is here tonight. Under protective services, this is strengthen neighborhoods. A C priority, the fire response plan. I wasn't aware of this work that was going to be done, and I don't know what this is about. So maybe we'll have to ask the chief the next time he's around, or maybe the chair can recognize the deputy city manager to.
I will if he puts his hand up. Mr.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair, I can speak to it generally. With the new Northeast Fire Hall, our fire chief just wants to look at the 4 stations and all his equipment and staffing complement, just to make sure that he's getting the best utilization out of the existing equipment and staffing that he has. So he's having He hasn't had that look at it since he's been the chief, and he's going to have that look at it this year.
That's great, thank you. And finally, there's no need for us to add that A priority under business and development support for craft breweries, is there? We don't need to make an amendment there? No, good, okay, thank you.
It will be added as a city council-initiated stop doing list item. Councillor Zrilli.
First of all, thank you so much for this. It's nice and easy to read, and it'll be good to be able to bring it for votes all the time to understand where does that fit into our priorities. I was a little bit surprised to see it come this to open to because I was thinking maybe there would be more discussion maybe after the budget or as a group together. And so the only one that I was hoping to have a bit more discussion about around budget time was the Millardville Community Center, because it's my understanding that Place Millard has been on the books for a while, and I'm just wondering, because the A, B, or C doesn't have timing to it, with that being a C priority, what would the timing be, or what is the
hope or expectation for some sort of upgrade or something happening with Plasmalard in this budget year?
Yes, Mr. Holloway. Through the chair, we are there's some work ongoing with Plasmayardville, Plasmayard Community Center. We are currently completing our governance review, and as part of that review, we'll be bringing back to council some information on the site, on the facility, and we're going to be bringing some additional information on the long-term planning for the facility itself. There's a number of nuances around that, including just the southwest area and the services in that area, location, the site itself, and potential uses. So there's lots of information that will be coming forward this year. Later in the year, it is a C priority because we are still in the process of gathering that information. So we don't believe we'll be coming forward earlier in the 2015 year.
Well, I appreciate your openness on that. I just did want to get a bit of an understanding about timing for A, B, and C, and I know that's very difficult to do, but can we expect that C priorities will not happen in 2015?
I'm going to try to address that because I came up with the original definition. A C priority does not mean we won't be working on it. Mm-hmm. It's just a C priority. We are going to be working on all of these, and hopefully we'll get progress on all of them, but I would expect most of our staff efforts to be concentrated on the A priorities. But we have a very dedicated staff with lots of energy, and then when they do have a bit of extra time, they're also going at the B priorities, but not as their very top priorities. But they are moving along. The C priorities are also being worked on, but they're not A's or B's, they're C's. And so if they don't happen, that's forgivable. But we hope that there will be some progress on them. That's the sort of loose definition that I've come up with. And then Nikki, of course, has put better words to it, but that's the way I remember it.
Well, thank you, Pete, because I do know you've mentioned that in the past, that just because it's a C priority doesn't mean that it's not being worked on, and I think that's great clarification today for residents to understand that this doesn't mean that they're not being worked on, it just means that they're a C priority, but I'm glad to hear that we're still working towards that one. It's still in process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Well, looking through the business plan, I can see that Parks, Rec, and Culture is going to be very busy in the next while, particularly as we lead up to our 125th celebration. But and a number of these, I think, are geared to try to sort of come in time with that. But when I look at the park planning that's taking place, whether it's Rochester, Lee, Victoria, Sheffield, or Princeton, there's a lot. There's a lot in the planning process. The number of strategic plans coming forward, including the master plan for Parks, Rec, and Culture, but also the arena study, the aquatic study. I know there's a review going on a couple of those, the Arts, Culture, and Heritage one that's underway, and I think that those are going to help us set direction at a very critical time in the city. We have a number of plans coming forward, both in Coquitlam and also up on Burke Mountain. So I think that there's a lot of work to be done there, and I know your department is certainly up to the challenge, and we look forward to seeing good things from Parks, Rec, and Culture in those areas, as we do in all of our departments, because this is a very ambitious plan. As our city manager said, they can't all be an A priority. They're all important to us and to our citizens here in Coquitlam, and I'm sure we'll do the best we can to get through as many of them as we can. I'd like to, though, dwell on the other document that's attached here, and that's the summary of key strategic risks. And this is one that we look at every year, and I noticed that this year, while there's a number that have stayed, the risk factor has stayed the same. None have gone down, but 1, 2, 3, 3 have gone up, and we have a new one here. And I was just wondering if, as best we can in this forum, maybe to sort of outline just a little bit about what some of the concerns are and things that we should be aware of coming forward in terms of potential risks.
Mr. Dumont.
I can maybe take a stab at that. The one that we added, the lack of timely decisions and favorable actions, there's a number of items that we highlighted. The transfer station is a big one for us, and Metro replacing the transfer station that's going to be closing down on United Boulevard. The Brunette interchange improvements that are needed is another one where things aren't moving as quickly as, and we need some timely action on. So there's a few like that. Riverview Lands again is another one. So that is a new one that we highlighted where there's major issues that are directly impacting us in a negative way. In terms of the ones that we upgraded, major construction project risks and impacts on the community, we upgraded that one largely because of the Evergreen line, and the construction is in full swing now, and we're seeing impacts. We're seeing some negative ones in Port Moody, luckily not in Coquitlam, but there is some impacts to that. We see it all over the city in terms of the guideway construction, so that's why that one was upgraded. Interference or downloading, that particular one, there's a number of things that affect us in terms of downloading or things that we're worried about being downloaded. One of them is dikes. That was always a provincial function, and they constructed them originally, and now they're trying to pass them on to us. There's also issues like housing affordability that we were struggling with today that traditionally hasn't been our responsibility, but now is being where there's pressure building on us to fill the gaps where other levels of government aren't doing things. So that would be another example. I think generally speaking too, we're seeing less partnership opportunities with senior government and less funding coming our way. So we thought that one deserved a higher rating. And then just the major infrastructure facilities or failures, that one just, we have almost $2 billion worth of infrastructure now, and it's a growing area, major infrastructure with the potential for major failures, whether it's bridges or major water mains or piping systems and those sorts of things. So we just thought that deserved a little bit higher rating than what we had done previously. So that was basically the rationale we had for changing those numbers.
Thank you. And so some, obviously, there's risk to how we do business here in the city, some risk to our quality of life in the city, but also I suspect, I see you've highlighted some financial risk. Certainly the downloading from other levels of government has an impact on our taxpayers, and the potential for infrastructure and facility failure also has a financial risk as well.
Yeah, and a direct financial risk with the transfer station is a good example of that, where if it's not replaced in a timely way, we could be in a situation where we have to truck our garbage to the Surrey transfer station, and there would be a direct additional cost to us because of that. So,
okay, thank you.
I will add my only comment, that is the nicest and most readable business plan I've ever seen. Well done.
Yes, and I'd like to thank Nikki for doing that. She was the one that put it in a more readable format, and part of the business plan priorities is educating the community about what we're doing, as well as staff, and ingraining in them the sense of priority and what are the important things to concentrate on. So this makes it a more useful, easier format for people to see the information. So thank you to Nikki for that.
Absolutely. Now, if Planning Department could make some of their staff reports look as readable. They're only black and white. Not even shades of gray. Mr.
Yeah.
Outstanding. And now it's a recommendation to approve. All in favor of approval of the 2015 business plan? All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item 14 is the Metro Vancouver Board and Brief for their meeting of January 23rd. The staff recommendation is that Council receive the brief for information and are Metro Vancouver representatives are available to respond to any questions that may come up.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
We do have one onward transmittal item as identified earlier. This is item 15, and it concerns citizen appointments to 2015 advisory committees. The staff recommendations that Council approve the 2015 citizen appointments to advisory committees as listed in attachment 1 to this report.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. I do want to express our thanks to all of these several dozen people who put their names forward and all those that actually applied and offered their services. The committees were oversubscribed again, so we thank both of those groups, the ones that weren't able to be added onto a committee and the ones that are now going to be serving our committee structure. We really do value public opinion and public input, and this is one of the ways we get advice from our community. So the motion is all in favor. Opposed? Carried unanimously, and with our thanks.
Your Worship, that's the last formal item for this agenda.
Okay. Next Monday is a stat holiday. Because of that, our Parks and Recreation Department are opening their new female-only swim on the Monday morning, and that happens on each one of the statutory holidays of the coming year. There's information about that on our website. Hopefully that will be a great success. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, I have a notice of motion.
Go ahead.
Just read the therefore be it resolved section that Coquitlam City Council renew its request of the province and school district to make funding for the construction of schools on Burke Mountain an urgent priority. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Marsden.
All of Council has it before us.
What is the waiver?
It won't be debated unless there's a motion to waive, and I see Councillor Hodge moved to waive. Councillor Asmundson seconds. Discussion on the motion to waive. All in favor? Opposed? That is, as required, unanimous. Away we go. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. So I think I should read the whereases now as part of this motion to get them on the record. Whereas the Burke Mountain District of Coquitlam encompasses one of the largest and most accessible greenfield development areas in Metro Vancouver, whereas well-planned and executed development of Burke Mountain will facilitate the reaching of Metro Vancouver's goals of compact urban development, whereas many families with young children have made their home on Burke Mountain, whereas the planning and construction of schools on Burke Mountain has fallen badly behind this population growth, whereas this absence of required schools has created a situation in which on many streets in Burke Mountain every child is attending a different school than other parts of the school district, a state of affairs which hinders the formation of healthy neighborhoods, and whereas this has given rise to significant community anxiety, which in turn is negatively affecting the proper development of the rest of Burke Mountain, including recently released provincial land, therefore be it resolved that Coquitlam City Council renew its request of the province and school district to make funding for the construction of schools on Burke Mountain an urgent priority. And I put this brought this motion forward as a result of the discussions that we had last week here around the table, where it was clear that there's a lot of community frustration about the lack of timely school construction on Burke Mountain. And we all shared a lot of information about why that was taking place, and I think Council was really did a great job in explaining what its role was and trying to say what the province's and the school district's responsibility was. And it was generally said around the table that, we've done everything we can do from the city point of view, and we are negotiating and talking and urging behind the scenes. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, well, there's one thing that we haven't actually done. It's actually the biggest, longest arrow in our quiver when dealing with other levels of government. It's the formal motion requesting them to do something. I thought, well, this is the one last thing that we can do. The community looks to City Council for advice, leadership, guidance, information, and this is something we can give to the community, telling them that we understand what their frustration and that we are on their side in wanting to make construction of schools on Burke Mountain an urgent priority. And I did notice that in the Enterprise Risk Management Plan that we just finished passing, the level 7 risk, which is the highest, the new one that we added, one of the risks there is the potential longer than anticipated wait for schools in northeast Coquitlam due to the limited capacity of the city to influence the province's school planning process. I sense the staff are feeling frustrated about their inability to influence this issue. Well, I hope that this motion helps them influence, adds some power to the influence, even if just a little bit. I know we are all very concerned about this issue. We've heard from the residents on Burke Mountain. We know that schools need to be built there. We've done our bit in terms of designating the land and be prepared to helping assemble land, be prepared to consider rezoning land when those questions come up. This is one more thing we can do to send that message loud and clear, and maybe we can get this potential major risk to the city downgraded next year as a result of this and all the other actions that we are taking. And that's why I put this motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is not a new issue, of course. This happens in every community, growing community, and it happened in Coquitlam. Last time it happened was about 16 years ago with Westwood Plateau, a new development. The rules are, under the provincial rules, once people arrive, once they register their children for school, and once there's enough registration for school, then we start the process of developing schools. We've long been critical of that process, but it's been the process for my whole adult life. That's just the way schools get developed in this province. We actually, back then, I was part of a committee that called Climb the Stairs to Summit. Summit Middle was the last of the schools to be built in Westwood Plateau, and it was dragging on and on and on, and couldn't get it. It was at the time a freeze in construction about 1998, I guess this was 1996 or 1997, and there was a capital freeze in the provincial government, and so that school was not getting built, and some parents got together, and along with DPAC at the time and the school board, and rallied enough support to get Summit Middle built. It is an enormous challenge, as I said, for every community. It's particularly challenging in this neighborhood. In this neighborhood, we have, as typically happens, all of the services going in as the city progresses with the development. It's pipes go in and roads go in and sidewalks, parks and playgrounds and trails, all the street lights and stop lights and widening of roads, and all of that happens as the development progresses. We're now almost ready with our new fire hall, which is a major investment, a capital investment the city has put forward in the effort to make this community complete. There are only 2 services that don't get installed by local government or at the behest of local government, at the behest of the city, and that's schools and buses, and those are also both of the services that aren't ready yet for this new neighborhood. And the new neighborhood is suffering because of that. It's without buses, we end up with parking issues, and the people can't get around without buying the second car. That's unworkable. We need to find a solution there, and it's going to be a plebiscite this spring, actually, may well bring us a solution. On this one here, the schools still aren't built. The land has been assembled for one of them. There's land available for another one, and we've got the sites identified as is required of municipalities, but we're left with the school construction process being between the school district and the province, and we're not there yet. So this is something we have been working on. We've met with the minister. We've written repeatedly. We've spoken to everyone we can think of. Even though we're not responsible for the construction of schools, we certainly want to find a solution here. And if this motion helps, we will be sending more letters saying this motion has been passed by council. The stakes are high. We need to find a solution for these families that have moved into what I think will be one of the best neighborhoods in the province. But right now it's incomplete because of the absence of those schools. So, Councillor Hodge.
Well, Your Worship, I agree, and I understand the frustrations of the residents up on Burke Mountain firsthand, because my wife and I have lived on Burke Mountain for the last 20 years, and when our first child was born back in 2000, the planning process for Burke Mountain was just beginning, and I was excited to learn that there would be an elementary school built in 5 years, just 1 block from my home, and I thought, wow, this is great. My son will attend kindergarten there. Being a realist, I thought, well, maybe grade 1. Today, my son is attending Terry Fox Secondary School, and his 2 brothers are graduating from Quay Middle School, and they will never attend a school on Burke Mountain. As a new parent, I went to the school district website, I looked at the capital plan, and I still have it. From 2004, the 5-year capital plan, item number 1, a Burke Mountain Secondary School. Item to list 2 or 3 others. Item 5, Hyde Creek Elementary. Hyde Creek Elementary today doesn't actually even exist on the plan. So plans do change. But over the past 10 years, funding requests have been made, local priorities have changed. And in the 10 years I've watched the population of Burke Mountain grow from a few homes on acreage to a densely populated urban community that's still waiting for schools. And in my 3 years on council, as the mayor said, we've had meetings, we've sent letters, we've met with our MLA, we've met with school trustees, we've met with the new school trustees, and yet we're still waiting for schools up there. Last year, when the provincial government announced the sale of 580 acres of land on Burke Mountain, most of which will someday be housing, this council wrote a letter and asked that the provincial government hold back the land that's designated for school sites, and that didn't happen. As a school district does finally have, or will soon have, 3 of the school sites, 2 of them for elementary schools, but no capital funding to build them. And I believe that when the time comes that first elementary school opens, it's going to be at capacity. And I said this last week at the public hearing, I think that the school district needs to begin working on 2 schools simultaneously so they can get 2 of them built. But, you know, as I said, timetables change, staff change, school trustees change, and I think that one of the things that the people on Burke Mountain are asking for, in addition to the schools right away, is they want to know the plan. They want to know which schools are being built first, where those schools are going to be built, and just as importantly, what's going to happen this fall and next fall and the fall after that while we wait for those schools to open. Where are the kids going to go to? Lee Elementary's full. Last year we turned away students for kindergarten at Lee Elementary. And so I think that what we need to do, as I said last week, I said that I made a suggestion that what we need to do is to have the school board come out, the group that's ultimately responsible for the planning and coordinating the construction of those schools. I think that they need to come out and talk to the residents of Burke Mountain and let them know what the new plans are. As I said, I made that as a suggestion last week. I'd like to actually now formally make that suggestion, and I'd like to make an amendment to this motion and ask that the School District 43 staff and trustees hold a public information meeting for the residents of Burke Mountain to provide information about school construction and interim plans for accommodating students at Lee Elementary. And I'd like to make that as a second point in addition to the one that Councillor O'Neill has raised.
Now, normally, given that we've only waived the notice of the original motion, this isn't normal. I agree, it's not normal.
It's basically saying, in addition to sending the letter for the funding, that we should also encourage them to have an information meeting.
I get what it's saying. I know what the motion is. Council has waived notice on the motion that they knew was before them. Now you might want to do a second motion because it could stand alone.
Second notice? Okay, I can do that.
Is that going to work?
It certainly does work. I do think it's congruent with the intent of the original motion, but it works the other way.
Yeah, I just don't want to.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay, so we'll hold that thought. Councillor Cirillo.
So speaking to the first one, not to the second?
No, the motion, the first one's on the floor.
Well, first of all, many times residents will approach me and say, what can I do? Council doesn't seem to be listening. What can I do? What can I do to be heard? And I just want to congratulate the residents of Burke Mountain for effectively coming out to the public hearing last week and expressing their concerns in a very passionate and meaningful way. And this motion is most certainly directly a reaction to their outstanding input. If you look at this at the surface, it actually seems like a no-brainer. It seems a no-brainer that we would vote yes to sending this letter. My concern at this time is that passing of this motion will create an environment where this council will have free license again to start piling more people into Burke Mountain. We can continue to sit here and say, well, we did our best, we did everything we can, we sent a letter to the government, and now we can approve the subdivision. So I'm concerned about that. But what I'm more concerned about is what Mayor Stewart just mentioned earlier, which is the stakes are very, very high right now. We are at a very tenuous point in community pressure and what's happening with the elections. We have a brand new school trustee group. We have a brand new superintendent. We have a lot of very tenuous things right now, and I'm nervous, not knowing fully how this letter will impact what's happening behind the scenes, and that it could create tensions in this very stakes are high time. So I'll listen to what other people have to say, but it seems like a no-brainer on the surface. But I have to say, not knowing what's happening behind the scenes on the government and the news trustee side, I'm nervous about this one. Thank you.
Okay. Motion before us is the notice of motion is presented by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Morrison. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Zarrillo is opposed. Okay. Councillor, the motion carries. Councillor Hodge. Just grab your microphone.
Two ways. Second.
There we go. Good.
Second, either as a second notice of motion or as part two of...
We'll consider this to be on the floor. Why don't you present your motion? Present your motion.
Okay. That the School District 43 staff and trustees hold a public information meeting for the residents of Burke Mountain to provide information about school construction, interim plans for accommodating students at Lee Elementary.
Okay. We can't have a motion let someone else do something. We could have a motion that we ask them to do it.
That they organize.
Mr. Clerk.
So what I would suggest is just prefacing Councillor Hodge's proposed motion with that council asks that School District 43 staff.
Yes. I was a tag on, so I was.
Okay.
But it's a separate, yes. That
a motion,
council asks.
For us to pass a motion that they do something is awkward, obviously. And that's been seconded by Councillor Zarrillo.
Send a letter.
Right.
Are you still seconding?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay. See, this is the one I'd be concerned with about the relationship with the school board. We haven't talked to the school board. We haven't given them a chance. And there's a motion on the floor now that we pressure them into doing something that is within their realm to do or to not do. And I haven't, as a matter of course, told other levels of government what to do, and I asked them not to do that to our level of government. And so I'd be really, really awkward. I feel really awkward about this one, and I won't be able to. I won't be able to support this one. I understand the intent, and I in fact have had discussions about this topic with some members of the school board, including new trustees. But I really, I think it's still up to them to work out how they intend to dialogue with the residents of Burke Mountain. Anybody else? Councillor Asmundson.
Well, I agree with the intent what Councillor Hodge is saying, and I think but I think what I'd rather do is have us, rather than a motion, relay our wishes for them to hold an information. If they don't hold one, then we can come back. And I agree with you, and we've talked, Councillor Hodge, about the need for a public information meeting. We had it at the public hearing. This motion here was strictly the concern that came out of the public hearing last week is that the need for the build to schools and the capital dollars, as we explained at the last meeting, that we've acquired one piece of land. We've now, in that public hearing we had, we're acquiring a second piece of land for the elementary schools, and that we need the capital dollars for them. And the public needs to be better informed. I think the public came with an idea about signs on playgrounds up there to better inform the public about what's going on. And I think I want the school board to have a public town hall meeting, but is it our direction? Would we be feeling the same way if we were getting notices of motions from the school board telling us to hold a town hall meeting on X, Y, and Z on a project? I don't know if that would be so. I have hesitation on this. I think the other one, asking for the province and them to come up with the funds and make it a priority for schools in Burke Mountain, is a different one, because we have done our part and getting the land. Up until the fact that we got the land, we couldn't build a school. I know 2002, I know it was part of the ratepayers and being a part of the President Association, and the high school, which is even further pushed out from what it's originally was supposed to be the first thing built up in Burke Mountain, was supposed to be the high school at David and Coast Meridian. So I'm well aware of all that, but that was the only site that we've ever acquired. The site that we've now just acquired are 2 elementary schools, and we only got the one site completed through our lands and purchasing this fall, and through this development we've got the second one. So now it's the ball's in another court to get the capital dollars to move forward on that. I want an information meeting. I want the town hall meeting. I'd like them to have it. I don't know if doing a notice of motion, and we talked about this. I wasn't sure that you were going to do, I didn't know that you were going to pull a notice of motion on this part of it, but I don't know if this is the best way to get the school board to put a town hall meeting up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I might have missed this, but did we agree that we weren't going to vote on waiving notice for this? We
didn't agree. I took it that no one had expressed an interest related to notice, but I can have the motion to waive notice if you like, or I can enforce that
I just think I think there's merit to what Councillor Hodge has proposed. I just would like a bit of time to give it some thought and have a discussion before feeling compelled to vote on it.
Okay. Okay. You've raised enough question. We'll need a motion to waive notice on this. We're treating this as a notice of motion. So Councillor Hodge moves that we waive the one meeting notice requirement. Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder to the waiving of notice? Sorry. Councillor Hodge has moved that we waive notice. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Cirillo. Okay. And the requirement on that is 2/3. Any discussion on the notice waiving? Seeing none. All in favor of waiving notice? All opposed? That motion fails with Councillor Wilson. Sorry. Can you do that again? Opposed? Councillor Wilson, Towner, Asmundson, O'Neill, and myself are opposed. The motion fails to receive the required notice. So the motion is treated as a notice of motion and will appear on the next agenda. Okay?
That is correct.
Oh. Okay, fair enough. There may be an amended version of the motion on the...
The idea was to add it on as an extra to that letter. So if it's not going to go with the letter, then I think we need to find another way to convey that to the school district. The request was just to make that recommendation to them in lieu of what took place at the meeting last week and the request for information. Yeah. I think clearly there's a need for information up there and how to best get that out.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay, we'll still be on next meeting's agenda.
It will appear on the agenda of the meeting of February 16th.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Asmundson seconded by Councillor O'Neill to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We're going to have questions from the audience on tonight's agenda. Are there any questions on tonight's agenda? Any questions at all? Seeing none, thank you all for coming.